When Lena Moore walked into that cafe, she had one arm hidden in her coat pocket and a finger hovering over the cancel button on her phone. She'd almost turned around 3 times, almost texted him that she was sick, almost decided that blind dates were a terrible idea for someone like her, someone who'd learned the hard way that the moment people see what's missing, everything changes. But then Ethan Brooks looked up from his coffee, smiled like he'd been waiting his whole life for her to walk through that door, and asked the one question she wasn't ready to answer. What are you so afraid of? If you're watching from anywhere in the world, hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let me take you back to where it all began. The cafe was the kind of place people chose when they wanted to disappear into the background. Small tables tucked into corners, soft jazz playing just loud enough to fill the silence, and windows that looked out onto a street where strangers passed without looking twice. Lena Moore stood outside that window for a full 3 minutes, her breath fogging the glass, her good hand gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles had gone white. She could see him inside. Ethan Brooks, 34 years old, worked in graphic design, father to a 7-year-old daughter. Those were the facts her friend Sarah had given her when she'd practically begged Lena to give this whole dating thing one more chance. He's kind, Sarah had said, like that word alone could undo 3 years of loneliness and self-imposed isolation. He's been through his own losses. He'll understand. But understanding and accepting were 2 different things, and Lena had learned that lesson in the cruelest way possible. Ethan sat at a corner table, checking his watch every 30 seconds, running his hand through dark hair that was just beginning to gray at the temples. He wore a navy sweater that looked soft and well-worn, jeans that had seen better days, and an expression that was equal parts nervous and hopeful. He looked normal, like someone who still believed that good things could happen, like someone who hadn't yet learned that the world could take everything from you in a single moment and leave you with nothing but questions you'd never be able to answer. Lena's left arm, the prosthetic one, was tucked deep inside her coat pocket, the other sleeve pinned neatly against her side. She'd practiced this for hours. The coat was deliberately oversized, the scarf wrapped just so, the whole presentation designed to buy her at least 15 minutes before he noticed. 15 minutes to decide if she could trust him with the truth. 15 minutes to see if he looked at her the way everyone else did once they understood what was missing. She'd almost canceled that morning, had typed out the text 3 different times. Something came up. I'm so sorry. Maybe another time. But Sarah's words kept echoing in her head. You can't hide forever, Lena. You deserve to be happy. Did she? Lena wasn't sure anymore. Happiness felt like something that belonged to the person she used to be. The woman who'd worked quality control at the plastics factory, who'd had a fiancé named Marcus who'd promised her forever, who'd believed that the worst thing that could happen was getting passed over for a promotion or having to work an extra shift. That woman had died the same day the hydraulic press malfunctioned, even if her heart had kept beating. The new Lena, the one standing outside this cafe with phantom pains shooting through arms that no longer existed, wasn't sure she recognized happiness anymore. But she'd promised Sarah. One date. Just one. Taking a breath that felt like swallowing broken glass, Lena pushed open the door. The warmth hit her first. The cafe was almost too hot, the kind of heat that made winter coats feel suffocating. Then came the smell of coffee and cinnamon, the low murmur of conversation, the clink of cups against saucers. Normal sounds, safe sounds. Sounds that belonged to a world where people met for coffee and talked about their jobs and their hobbies, and maybe, if things went well, agreed to meet again. Ethan spotted her immediately. His face lit up, not with the polite interest of someone fulfilling an obligation, but with genuine warmth. He stood, nearly knocking over his coffee in the process, and raised a hand in greeting. Lena? She nodded, her throat suddenly too tight for words. Up close, he was taller than she'd expected, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners and a smile that looked like it came easily, naturally, like something he did without thinking. He gestured to the chair across from him. I'm Ethan. I was starting to think maybe you'd decided to bail on me. I considered it, Lena said, the honesty surprising even herself. She slid into the chair, keeping her coat on, keeping her arms carefully positioned. About a dozen times, actually. Ethan laughed, but it wasn't mocking. It was the sound of someone who understood nerves, who'd felt them himself. Honestly, same. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes rehearsing conversation starters in my head. I think I'm on my 7th variation of, "So, how do you know Sarah?" Despite everything, Lena felt the corner of her mouth twitch. "We worked together. Before." Before? Ethan tilted his head, curious but not pushy. "Before I had to leave that job." Lena's hand tightened on the edge of the table. This was it. The moment where she could redirect, deflect, tell a carefully constructed half-truth that would buy her more time. But Sarah's words echoed again. "You can't hide forever." "Can I get you something to drink?" A waitress appeared at Lena's elbow, saving her from having to elaborate. "Coffee? Tea?" "Coffee, please. Black." Lena watched the waitress retreat, grateful for the interruption, but knowing it was only temporary. Ethan was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not pity. She'd learned to recognize that one from 50 yards away. Not curiosity exactly, something softer, something that looked almost like understanding. "Sarah told me you've been through a rough few years," he said quietly. "She didn't tell me details. Said that was your story to share if you wanted to." Lena's chest tightened. "What did she tell you?" "That you're one of the strongest people she knows, that you deserve someone who sees that." Ethan paused, then added with a self-deprecating smile, "She also said you probably wouldn't show up, so I should consider it a victory if you at least walked through the door." "I almost didn't." "What changed your mind?" Lena looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something she hadn't expected. There was a weariness around his eyes, a kind of exhaustion that went deeper than lack of sleep. He carried his own weight, she realized, his own losses. Whatever Sarah had told him about her, she'd told Lena just as little about him, only the basics. Widower, single father, good man. "I'm tired of being afraid," Lena said, the words escaping before she could stop them. The waitress returned with her coffee, and Lena reached for it automatically, with her right hand, the real one, forgetting for just a moment that her left side was supposed to stay hidden. The movement pulled at her coat, and the fabric slipped just enough to reveal the edge of the prosthetic where it met the sleeve. She froze. Ethan's gaze dropped for just a fraction of a second, then returned to her face. His expression didn't change, didn't harden or soften or shift into that careful neutrality people used when they were trying not to stare. He just looked at her, like nothing had changed, like she was still the same person who'd walked through the door 3 minutes ago. "Afraid of what?" he asked, as if he hadn't seen anything at all. Lena's hand trembled as she pulled the coat back into place. Her heart was hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. "Of people seeing me and deciding I'm not worth the trouble." The words hung in the air between them, raw and exposed. Lena wanted to take them back, to laugh them off, to stand up and walk out of this cafe and never look back. But Ethan was still looking at her with those steady eyes, and something in his expression made her stay in her chair. "My wife died 3 years ago," Ethan said quietly. "Car accident. She was on her way home from picking up groceries. Some kid ran a red light going 60 in a 35 zone. She died before the ambulance arrived." Lena's breath caught. "I'm so sorry." "Everyone is." Ethan's smile was sad, distant. "That's what they all say. I'm so sorry." Like it's a script we all learned in some grief handbook. But you know what the worst part was? The way people looked at me afterward, like I was broken, like I was this tragic figure who needed to be handled with care, like I'd stopped being Ethan and become that poor widower with the little girl. He met her eyes, and Lena saw something fierce and honest burning there. I spent a year being afraid that no one would ever see me as anything else, that I'd always be the guy defined by what he lost. And then I realized I was doing the same thing to myself, hiding behind that identity because it was easier than risking someone seeing all of me and deciding I still wasn't enough. Lena felt tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. "How did you stop?" "I haven't. Not completely." Ethan wrapped his hands around his coffee cup like he needed something to hold on to. "But I decided that being alone and safe was worse than trying and maybe failing. So when Sarah mentioned you, When she said you were someone who'd understand what it's like to lose everything and have to rebuild yourself from nothing, I figured maybe we could be scared together. For the first time in 3 years, Lena felt something crack open in her chest. Not breaking, but opening. Like a door she'd nailed shut was finally allowing a sliver of light through. I lost my arms, she said. The words came out steady, clear. 3 years ago, factory accident, hydraulic press malfunction. They tried to save the left one, but the damage was too extensive. The right one was already gone. Ethan didn't flinch, didn't look away, didn't do any of the things people usually did when she told them. He just nodded like she'd told him something as ordinary as her favorite color. "And your fiancé?" he asked gently. Lena's laugh was bitter. "Gone within a month. He tried. I'll give him that. But every time he looked at me, I could see it in his eyes. The person he'd fallen in love with didn't exist anymore. I was just this reminder of everything that went wrong. He was an idiot." The bluntness of it startled a real laugh out of Lena. "You don't even know me." "No," Ethan agreed, "but I know what it's like to have someone look at you and only see what's missing instead of what's still there. And I know that anyone who walks away from someone they claim to love because things got hard is an idiot who didn't deserve you in the first place." Lena stared at him, this stranger who was somehow saying all the things she'd needed to hear for 3 years. "You don't know that. You don't know if I'm worth—" "Don't." Ethan's voice was firm, but not harsh. "Don't finish that sentence. Don't do that to yourself." "Do what?" "Decide for me that you're not worth knowing. That's my decision to make, and I'm already pretty sure you're wrong." Lena felt something hot and overwhelming building in her chest, anger or relief or hope, or maybe all three at once. "You don't understand what you're signing up for. I can't. There are things I can't do, simple things, things you probably don't even think about. Opening jars, tying shoes, cutting food. I need help with all of it, and eventually that gets old. Eventually people get tired of—" "Lena." Ethan reached across the table, then hesitated, his hand hovering in the space between them. "Can I?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. His fingers closed gently around her right hand, her real hand, the one that still felt sensation, still trembled with fear and hope and everything in between. "I have a 7-year-old daughter," Ethan said. "Her name is Mia. She's smart and funny and asks approximately 6,000 questions a day. She also can't tie her shoes yet. She needs help cutting her pancakes. She gets scared of thunderstorms and climbs into my bed at 2 in the morning. And you know what? I don't get tired of it, because needing help doesn't make her a burden. It makes her human." Lena's tears were falling now, hot tracks down her cold cheeks. "That's different. She's your daughter." "Is it?" Ethan's thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand. "Because from where I'm sitting, we're all just doing our best with what we have. We all need help sometimes. The only difference is some of us are honest about it." The cafe had gone quiet around them, or maybe Lena had just stopped hearing anything except the sound of her own heartbeat and Ethan's steady voice. "I can't promise you I'll always say the right thing," Ethan continued. "I can't promise I won't mess up or say something stupid or have moments where I don't understand. But I can promise I won't run away. I can promise I'll try. And I can promise that when I look at you, I see someone brave enough to show up even when she's terrified. That's worth a lot more than perfect arms." Lena pulled her hand back, not in rejection, but because she needed to wipe her face, needed a moment to breathe. "This is insane. We just met. You don't owe me anything." "You're right." Ethan sat back, giving her space. "We just met, and I don't owe you anything. But I'd like to know you. I'd like to hear your story, the whole thing, not just the tragedy. I'd like to know what makes you laugh and what you think about at 3 in the morning and what your favorite terrible movie is that you're embarrassed to admit you love." Despite everything, Lena felt herself smile. "I don't have a terrible favorite movie. Everyone has a terrible favorite movie." "Fine, bring it on. The cheerleading one from 2000. Ethan's grin was triumphant. "See? Now we're getting somewhere." He checked his watch, then looked back at her with something that might have been mischief. "It's 2:30. This cafe is great, but it's also crowded and loud and probably not the best place for an actual conversation. There's a beach about 15 minutes from here. It's probably freezing, but it's quiet. Want to get out of here?" Every instinct Lena had screamed at her to say no, to thank him politely, to tell him this had been nice, but she wasn't ready to retreat back into the safety of isolation. But that door in her chest was still open, still letting in light, and for the first time in 3 years she wanted to see what would happen if she stepped through it. "Okay," she heard herself say, "let's go." Ethan's smile could have lit up the entire cafe. He threw some bills on the table, grabbed his jacket, and held the door open for her as they stepped out into the cold December afternoon. The beach was exactly as he'd described, freezing and quiet, and absolutely empty except for a few seagulls picking through the remains of someone's abandoned lunch. The wind coming off the water was sharp enough to sting, but the sand was firm and the waves were steady, and there was something about the vastness of it all that made Lena feel like she could finally breathe. They walked in silence for a while, their footsteps leaving parallel tracks in the wet sand. Lena had pulled her coat tight around herself, but she wasn't hiding anymore. The prosthetic arm hung naturally at her side, visible now that she'd stopped trying to conceal it. Ethan walked beside her with his hands in his pockets, occasionally bending down to pick up a shell or a piece of sea glass. "Tell me about the accident," he said eventually. Not a demand, an invitation. Lena took a breath that tasted like salt and ozone. "I was working quality control at a plastics factory. It was supposed to be a safe job, mostly visual inspections, occasional measurements. But the hydraulic press that day was acting up. Everyone knew it. We'd reported it twice that week. Management kept saying they'd get someone to look at it, but they were understaffed, and it was cheaper to keep running it than to shut down the line." She paused, watching a wave crash and retreat. "I was checking a batch of components near the press when it malfunctioned. The safety guard failed. It should have stopped, should have triggered the emergency shutdown, but it didn't. It just came down." Ethan didn't say anything, just kept walking beside her, his presence steady and solid. "I don't remember much about the actual moment. There was pain and noise, and then nothing. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. They told me they'd tried to save my left arm, but the damage was too severe. The right one was already gone. Marcus was there when I woke up. He held my hand, my phantom hand, and told me everything would be okay." "But it wasn't," Ethan said quietly. "No. At first he tried. He really did. He helped me with physical therapy, learned about prosthetics, talked about how we'd adapt. But I could see it wearing on him. Every time I needed help with something basic, every time I had to ask him to do something I used to do myself, I could see him pulling further away. He started working late, stopped coming to my PT appointments, started looking at me like I was a stranger." Lena stopped walking, turning to face the ocean. "One night, about a month after I came home, he told me he couldn't do it anymore. He said he'd always loved the person I used to be, but this wasn't what he'd signed up for. He left the next day. Took his stuff while I was at a doctor's appointment. Didn't even have the guts to say goodbye to my face." "Jesus," Ethan's voice was rough with anger. "What a coward." "Maybe," Lena shrugged. "Or maybe he was just honest. Maybe he saw what everyone else sees, that I'm broken, and broken things are too much work to fix." "Stop." Ethan stepped in front of her, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You're not broken. You're hurt. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." His voice was fierce now, intense. "Broken means beyond repair. Broken means useless. You're neither of those things. You lost your arms. You didn't lose yourself." Lena felt tears threatening again. "How do you know? You don't even know who I am." "So tell me." Ethan's expression softened. "Tell me who you are. Not what happened to you. Not what you lost. Who are you, Lena Moore?" The question hung in the air between them, and Lena realized she didn't know how to answer it. For 3 years she'd defined herself by the accident, by what was missing, by what she couldn't do anymore. The woman she'd been before, the one who'd loved her job, who'd volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends, who dreamed of traveling to Ireland and learning to speak French. That woman felt like someone from a previous life. "I don't know anymore," she whispered. "Then let's figure it out together." Ethan reached out slowly, telegraphing his intention, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Tell me something about yourself that has nothing to do with your arms. Favorite food, dream vacation, secret talent, anything." Lena thought for a moment, reaching back through the fog of the past 3 years. I used to paint, watercolors. Nothing professional, just for fun. Landscapes mostly. I was terrible at faces. Used to? Can't exactly hold a brush anymore. Says who? Says physics? Lena's laugh was incredulous. I don't have hands, Ethan. So, there are adaptive tools, mouth brushes, foot painting. Hell, I saw a documentary once about an artist who creates incredible work by flinging paint at canvases. Art isn't about the tool, it's about the vision. That's easy for you to say. You're right. It is. Ethan's honesty was disarming. I haven't lost what you've lost. I don't know what it feels like to have my body change in ways I can't control. But I do know what it feels like to lose the future I'd planned, to have to rebuild everything from scratch, to wonder if I'll ever feel whole again. He sat down on the sand, patting the space beside him. Lena hesitated, then joined him, the cold seeping through her jeans immediately. When Rachel died, Ethan said, staring out at the waves, I was angry. At her for leaving. At the kid who ran the red light. At God or the universe or whatever cosmic force decided that day was the day my world ended. But mostly, I was angry at myself. Why? Because our last conversation was a fight. We argued about something stupid. I don't even remember what. She left angry. I let her leave angry, and then she was just gone. No do-overs, no chance to apologize, just gone. Lena felt her chest tighten with recognition. Different losses, same guilt. For months I couldn't function, Ethan continued. My parents had to move in to help with Mia because I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't eat, couldn't work. Couldn't do anything except replay that last conversation and hate myself for wasting our final moments together being petty. But you got through it. Eventually. Mostly because Mia needed me to. She'd already lost her mother. I couldn't let her lose me too, even if I wanted to disappear. So I got up, went through the motions, pretended to be functional until one day I realized I wasn't pretending anymore. He turned to look at her, his eyes reflecting the gray of the winter sky. But I never stopped being scared, never stopped wondering if I'd ever feel like myself again, if I'd ever be able to love someone without the shadow of loss hanging over everything, if I deserved to be happy when Rachel didn't get that chance. Do you? Lena asked. Deserve to be happy? I'm starting to think that's the wrong question. Ethan picked up a handful of sand, letting it trickle through his fingers. Happiness isn't something we earn or deserve, it's something we choose. Every day, in small moments, in choosing to show up even when we're scared, in letting people in even when it hurts. Lena watched the sand fall, each grain catching the light before disappearing. I asked Marcus that once, if he thought I still deserved happiness. He said he didn't know. That was when I knew it was over. Then I'll answer for him. Ethan looked at her with such certainty it took her breath away. Yes. You deserve happiness. You deserve love. You deserve someone who sees your scars and your struggles and chooses you anyway. Not despite what you've been through, but including it. All of it. You're very sure of that for someone who just met me. I'm sure because I see you trying. I see you sitting here having this conversation, even though every instinct probably told you to run. I see you being honest about your fears instead of hiding behind polite small talk. That takes courage. Lena turned away, unable to hold his gaze. Or desperation. Maybe I'm just so lonely I'll take any kindness that comes my way. Maybe it's both. Ethan's voice was gentle. Maybe you're lonely and scared and brave all at once. Maybe that's what it means to be human. They sat in silence for a while, watching the waves roll in and out with hypnotic regularity. The sun was starting to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that seemed almost obscene in their beauty. The world didn't care that Lena's life had fallen apart. It just kept turning, kept creating moments of grace and beauty, whether she was ready for them or not. I need to tell you something, Lena said finally, about what it would mean if this... She gestured vaguely between them. I need help with a lot of things, daily things. I have adaptive equipment for some stuff, but not everything. Someone has to help me wash my hair, button shirts with small buttons, open containers with safety seals, It's not romantic. It's not noble. It's just reality. Okay, Lena blinked. Okay? That's it? What do you want me to say? Ethan asked. That I'm scared off by the idea of helping you with practical things? I have a 7-year-old. I help her with practical things all day long. The only difference is you can actually hold a conversation about something other than Minecraft and unicorns. Despite everything, Lena laughed. I don't know anything about Minecraft. Consider yourself lucky. Mia could talk about it for hours. Ethan's smile faded into something more serious. Look, I'm not going to pretend I understand everything you deal with. I'm sure there will be moments where I say something stupid or do something insensitive because I haven't lived in your body, but I promise to listen, to learn, to ask questions instead of making assumptions. Is that enough? I don't know. Lena's honesty surprised even herself. Nobody's ever offered that before. Then we'll figure it out as we go. Ethan stood, brushing sand from his jeans, and offered her his hand. Come on, it's getting cold, and I promised Mia I'd be home by dinner, but I'd like to see you again, soon, if you're willing. Lena looked at his outstretched hand, seeing the offering for what it was. Not charity, not pity, just connection. Just one person reaching for another across the distance that separated them. She took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Okay, she said, the word feeling like a leap off a cliff. Soon. They walked back to the parking lot as the sun painted the world in gold and shadow. Ethan told her about Mia, how she'd decided last week she wanted to be a veterinarian astronaut, how she'd started a collection of interesting rocks that was taking over their kitchen counter, how she asked questions about her mother that Ethan still didn't know how to answer. Lena found herself talking about things she hadn't thought about in years. Her childhood in rural Virginia, her mother's terrible cooking, the summer she'd spent trying to teach herself guitar before accepting she had no musical talent whatsoever. It was easy. Terrifyingly easy. When they reached Ethan's car, he hesitated with his hand on the door handle. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you come today? Really? Lena thought about it, about all the reasons she'd almost stayed home, about the fear that had followed her to this cafe and this beach. Because I'm tired of being afraid. Because I'm tired of letting what happened to me decide what happens next. Because Sarah was right. I can't hide forever. And now? Are you glad you came? Lena looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd spent an afternoon listening to her darkest fears without flinching, who'd offered understanding without demanding anything in return, who'd somehow made her feel seen for the first time in 3 years. Ask me again after our second date, she said. Ethan's smile was bright enough to rival the setting sun. Deal. How about Thursday? There's a Vietnamese place near my house that makes the best pho. Mia has soccer practice until 6, so maybe 7? I'll be there. He leaned in, then paused. Is it okay if I hug you? Lena nodded, her throat tight. The hug was brief but warm, his arms careful but not tentative, his presence solid and real and grounding. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. Thank you for giving me a chance, he said. Thank you for showing up, Lena replied. She watched him drive away, his taillights disappearing into the evening traffic, and realized she was smiling, actually smiling. The fear was still there, it probably always would be, but it had made room for something else, something that felt dangerously like hope. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. Well? Lena typed back with her good hand, pecking out the words slowly but surely. You were right. He's kind. We're having dinner Thursday. Sarah's response was immediate. I knew it! Tell me everything! But Lena slipped her phone back into her pocket. Some things were too new, too fragile to share just yet. Some things needed to stay protected just a little while longer, like seedlings that needed careful tending before they could withstand the wind. She walked to her own car, the prosthetic arm swinging naturally at her side, no longer hidden, no longer something to be ashamed of. It was just part of her. One piece of a larger whole that was still trying to figure out how all the parts fit together. As she drove home through the darkening streets, Lena thought about Ethan's question. Do you think you deserve happiness? For 3 years, she'd believed the answer was no. That happiness was something that belonged to the person she used to be, not the person she'd become. But maybe Ethan was right. Maybe happiness wasn't about deserving. Maybe it was about choosing, about showing up even when it hurt, about letting people see the truth and trusting they might choose to stay. Maybe it was about asking the question in the first place and being brave enough to wait for the answer. She didn't have all the answers yet. Didn't know if this thing with Ethan would last beyond Thursday, beyond next week, beyond the inevitable moment when the newness wore off and the reality of her limitations became unavoidable. But for the first time in 3 years, she wanted to find out. And that, she thought as she pulled into her driveway and killed the engine, was something worth holding on to. Thursday came faster than Lena expected. She spent 3 hours that afternoon standing in front of her closet, trying on and discarding outfit after outfit with increasing frustration. The sweater that looked good made her prosthetics more visible. The button-up shirt she loved required Sarah's help to fasten, which felt like admitting defeat before she'd even left the house. The dress was too formal, the t-shirt too casual. Everything felt like a statement she wasn't ready to make. She finally settled on a soft gray Henley that she could pull on herself and jeans that had seen her through 100 ordinary days. Normal clothes, safe clothes. Clothes that said she wasn't trying too hard but hadn't given up entirely. The Vietnamese restaurant was smaller than she'd imagined, tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore on a street that looked like it had been frozen in time somewhere around 1985. The sign out front was hand-painted, the windows steamed from the heat inside, and through the glass she could see Ethan already seated at a corner table, checking his phone with the distracted air of someone who'd arrived too early and didn't know what to do with himself. Lena sat in her car for a full minute, watching him. He looked different than he had at the beach. More polished, maybe, or just less windswept. He wore a dark green button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his hair was combed back in a way that suggested he'd made an effort. The sight made something warm unfold in her chest, followed immediately by a spike of panic. What was she doing? This was insane. She barely knew this man. One afternoon on a beach didn't erase 3 years of isolation and fear, didn't change the fundamental reality that relationships required vulnerability, and vulnerability required trust, and trust was something she'd buried so deep she wasn't sure she could excavate it anymore. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. I can see you sitting in your car. No pressure, but the spring rolls here are incredible and I ordered too many. Despite herself, Lena laughed. She typed back, stalker much? Observant. There's a difference. Also, I'm getting nervous, so I'm stress-eating breadsticks and could use backup. Lena took a breath, grabbed her purse, and pushed open the car door before she could talk herself out of it. The restaurant was warm and loud in the best way. The clatter of dishes, the rapid-fire Vietnamese conversation from the kitchen, the hiss of something frying. It smelled like lemongrass and star anise and comfort. Ethan stood when he saw her, his smile bright and genuine. You came, he said, like he genuinely doubted she would. I said I would. I know. But I also know it's scary. Showing up. He pulled out her chair, then seemed to second-guess the gesture. Sorry, is that... I don't want to be presumptuous. It's fine. Lena slid into the seat, grateful he'd asked instead of assuming. Thank you. They settled into an awkward silence, the kind that happens when two people who'd been startlingly honest on a beach suddenly find themselves in the harsh light of a public restaurant with other people's conversations humming around them. So, Ethan said finally, how was your week? Long? Quiet? I spent most of it wondering if I'd imagined how easy it felt to talk to you. The honesty seemed to catch him off guard. His smile turned softer, more real. Yeah? I spent most of it trying to explain to Mia why I was suddenly in a good mood. She's convinced I'm hiding something exciting, like a puppy or a trip to Disneyland. And instead you're just having dinner with a woman you barely know. The most exciting thing I've done in 3 years, Ethan said, and the way he said it, simple, direct, without a trace of pity or performance, made Lena's throat tight. The server appeared, a tiny Vietnamese woman who looked at them with the knowing expression of someone who'd seen 1,000 first dates. She rattled off specials in accented English while gesturing at the menu, then waited with poorly concealed impatience for them to order. The pho, Ethan said, and spring rolls, and... He glanced at Lena. What do you like? I've never been here. Then trust me. He looked back at the server. Bun cha. And Vietnamese coffee. 2 of everything. The server nodded and disappeared, leaving them alone again. You just ordered for me, Lena said, not quite sure if she was annoyed or amused. I did. Was that overstepping? Maybe. I'm still deciding. Fair enough. Ethan leaned back, studying her. So tell me something about your week that has nothing to do with worrying about tonight. Lena thought about it. Her weeks were painfully routine. Physical therapy appointments, video calls with her disability advocate, hours spent watching television she didn't care about just to fill the silence. But there had been one moment. I went to the art supplies store, she said, just to look. I told myself I was just browsing, but I spent 20 minutes staring at watercolor sets. Did you buy one? No, I don't even know why I went. It's not like I can paint anymore. Why not? Because painting requires hands, Ethan. Does it? He tilted his head, genuinely curious. Or does it require vision and creativity and the willingness to make a mess? You're being deliberately obtuse. I'm being deliberately optimistic. There's a difference. The server returned with their coffee, thick, dark, and sweet enough to make Lena's teeth hurt. Ethan took a sip, winced slightly, then grinned. Okay, that's aggressive, but good. Lena wrapped her right hand around the small cup, feeling the warmth seep into her palm. The prosthetic rested on the table between them, visible, undeniable. She waited for Ethan to look at it, to flinch, to do that thing people did where they pretended not to notice while clearly noticing. He didn't. His attention stayed on her face, patient and unhurried. Tell me about Mia, Lena said, needing to shift the focus away from herself. What's she like? Ethan's entire expression transformed. She's a hurricane disguised as a 7-year-old, smart as hell, curious about everything, and completely lacking in any sense of self-preservation. Last week, she decided to help me fix the leaky sink and flooded half the bathroom. Sounds exhausting. It is. It's also the only thing that kept me alive after Rachel died. His voice went quiet. Having to get up every morning, make breakfast, pack lunches, pretend everything was normal, it gave me a reason to function when I didn't want to. Does she remember her mom? Some. She was 4 when it happened. She remembers Rachel's laugh, the way she smelled, some perfume I can't replicate, the songs she used to sing. But the memories are fading, and I see her trying to hold on to them. Sometimes she asks me questions I don't know how to answer. Like what? Like why God took her mom, or if Rachel can see her from heaven, or if it's okay to be happy even though her mom is gone. Ethan's hands tightened around his coffee cup. I don't have answers for any of it. I just tell her it's okay to feel everything she's feeling, and that her mom would want her to live a big, full life. Lena felt something crack in her chest. That's more than most people can say. It doesn't feel like enough. He met her eyes. Does it ever feel like enough? The things we do to survive? No, Lena admitted. It feels like performing, like I'm pretending to be functional while everything inside is still broken. Maybe we're all pretending, Ethan said. Maybe that's the secret nobody talks about. We're all just making it up as we go, hoping we're doing it right. The food arrived, steaming bowls of pho, crispy spring rolls, a plate of bun cha that smelled like caramel and fish sauce, and something indefinably delicious. The server set everything down with practiced efficiency, then handed Lena chopsticks. Lena stared at them. She'd known this moment was coming, had prepared herself for it, but the reality still felt like a punch to the gut. I can't use those, she said quietly. Okay. Ethan flagged down the server. Can we get a fork, please? No, I mean, Lena felt heat rising in her cheeks. I can't use chopsticks or a fork, not without help. The spring rolls, maybe, if someone cuts them into smaller pieces. The pho... She gestured helplessly at the bowl. I can drink the broth. But the noodles, the meat, I need someone to help me. She waited for his expression to change, for the realization to hit that this wasn't theoretical anymore, wasn't some abstract concept they could discuss on a beach. This was the reality. This was what needing help actually meant. Ethan looked at the food, then at her, then back at the food. Okay, so we'll share. I'll eat some, you'll eat some. We'll figure it out. You don't understand? Then explain it to me. His voice was gentle but firm. Don't assume I can't handle it. Tell me what you need. Lena took a shaky breath. The spring rolls need to be cut into bite-sized pieces. I can eat them with my fingers. The pho, you'd need to hold the bowl while I drink the broth, then feed me the noodles and meat. With a fork. Like a child. Okay. Ethan picked up his knife and started cutting the spring rolls into smaller pieces, his movements methodical and unhurried. What about the buncha? Same thing. Small pieces. I can manage some of it, but not all. Got it. He arranged the cut spring rolls on a small plate, then slid it toward her. Start with these while I work on the rest. Lena picked up a piece of spring roll with her right hand, the movement awkward and self-conscious. She could feel people at nearby tables glancing over, their curiosity poorly disguised. Her face burned. Hey! Ethan's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. Look at me. She did. Nobody here cares, he said. And if they do, that's their problem, not yours. Eat your food. Enjoy it. Stop worrying about what strangers think. Easy for you to say. You're right. It is. He took a bite of his own spring roll, chewed thoughtfully. But I'm asking you to try anyway, because I guarantee you're the only one here who's thinking about this. Everyone else is too busy with their own meals and their own problems. Lena wanted to argue, but the spring roll was crispy and perfect, and she was hungrier than she'd realized. She ate another piece, then another, while Ethan worked on cutting the remaining food into manageable portions. This is good, she admitted. Told you, this place doesn't look like much, but the food is incredible. He finished his prep work, then picked up a fork. Ready for the pho? This is ridiculous. Probably. But it's also dinner, and you need to eat, so let's do this. He scooped up noodles and meat, brought the fork toward her mouth, then paused. Unless you'd rather not. We can order something else, something easier. Lena looked at him, at this man who was offering to feed her in a crowded restaurant without a trace of embarrassment or discomfort, who was treating this like it was the most normal thing in the world. Something inside her shifted. Okay, she whispered. The first bite was excruciating. Lena was hyper-aware of every eye in the restaurant, every potential judgment, every reason this was humiliating. But the pho was rich and complex and perfect, and Ethan's hand was steady, and after a few bites she stopped thinking about the mechanics and started thinking about the taste. Good? Ethan asked. Really good. They found a rhythm. Ethan ate some, fed her some, carried on a conversation like this was completely ordinary. He told her about Mia's latest obsession with dinosaurs, about the graphic design project that was driving him crazy, about his parents who called every Sunday to check on him and ask when he was going to start dating again. What did you tell them? Lena asked. That I was having dinner with someone interesting on Thursday. And my mother has already planned our wedding. She's very efficient. Lena nearly choked on her pho. We've had 2 dates. I know, I tried to explain that. She's not interested in logic. Ethan grinned. Fair warning, if this goes anywhere, you'll have to deal with her. She's very enthusiastic. If this goes anywhere, Lena repeated. That's a big if. Is it? Ethan set down his fork, his expression turning serious. Because from where I'm sitting, this feels pretty good. Natural, easy, even with the complicated parts. This is our second date. Everything feels easy at the beginning. Maybe, or maybe we're both too tired of pretending to waste time on games. He reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers. I like you, Lena. I like talking to you. I like that you're honest about what scares you. I like that you showed up tonight even though every instinct probably told you to run. And yeah, some of this is complicated, but complicated doesn't mean impossible. Lena looked at his hand, then at his face. You barely know me. Then let me know you better. That's how this works, right? We spend time together. We ask questions. We see if this thing between us is real or just two lonely people grabbing onto the first person who seems to understand. What if it's both? Then we figure that out too. Ethan's smile was soft. I'm not asking for forever, Lena. I'm just asking for another date. And maybe another after that. We'll take it slow. No pressure. No expectations beyond showing up and being honest. Lena felt tears pricking at her eyes. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let someone in without being terrified they'll leave. I don't know how to do this either, Ethan admitted. I haven't dated anyone since Rachel died. Every time I think about it, I feel guilty, like I'm betraying her memory, like I don't deserve to be happy when she's gone. So why are you here? Because loneliness is worse than guilt. Because Mia deserves to see me try to build a life instead of just surviving. Because when I met you, something clicked. Something that felt like possibility. They sat in silence for a moment, the restaurant buzzing around them, their half-eaten food cooling on the table. I want to meet her, Lena said suddenly. Mia, if we're doing this, if we're trying, she's part of your life, a big part. And I need to know if she can accept me, if she can handle what that means. Ethan's expression shifted, surprise, then something that looked like hope. Are you sure? That's a big step. I know, but hiding from it doesn't change the reality. If she can't handle it, better to know now before anyone gets hurt. She's 7. She doesn't have the same hang-ups adults do. Maybe. Or maybe she'll be scared. Maybe she'll ask questions I don't know how to answer. Maybe she'll look at me and see a reminder that bodies can break, and that will terrify her. Or maybe she'll surprise you. Ethan picked up the fork again, scooped up more noodles. She's asked about my dating life, actually. Wanted to know if I'd ever find someone to keep me company, since she thinks I get lonely. What did you tell her? That I was working on it, that I'd met someone nice, that if things went well, she might get to meet you soon. Lena's heart stuttered. You told her about me? Just the basics. That you're kind and smart and make me laugh. She's already decided she likes you. She doesn't even know me. She knows you make her dad happy. That's enough for her. They finished eating slowly, trading bites and stories and pieces of themselves. Ethan talked about his work designing book covers, about how he'd fallen into it almost by accident and discovered he loved the blend of art and commerce. Lena talked about her old job, about the satisfaction of catching defects before they became disasters, about the strange pride she'd felt in doing work that mattered even if nobody noticed. Do you miss it? Ethan asked. The work? Sometimes. Mostly I miss feeling useful, like I had a purpose beyond just existing. You could find new work. There are companies that prioritize hiring people with disabilities, programs to help with job placement. Doing what? I was quality control. That requires precision, fine motor skills, things I don't have anymore. So find something different. You said you liked catching problems before they became disasters. That's analytical thinking, problem solving. Those skills transfer. Lena shook her head. You're being optimistic again. I'm being practical. You're smart, Lena. You're capable. The accident changed your body, not your brain. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, it's hard as hell. But hard doesn't mean impossible. He signaled for the check, then looked back at her. I have an idea. It might be terrible, but hear me out. That's not a promising start. Saturday afternoon, come over. Meet Mia. We'll order pizza, hang out, see how it goes. No pressure. If it's awful, you can leave and we'll pretend it never happened. Lena's first instinct was to say no, to retreat back into safety. But she thought about what Ethan had said earlier, about showing up being the bravest thing, about choosing possibility over fear. Okay, she heard herself say. Saturday. Ethan's smile could have powered the entire city. Yeah? Yeah. But if this goes badly, I'm blaming you. Fair enough. I'll text you the address. He paid the check over Lena's protests, then walked her to her car. The night had turned cold, their breath-making clouds in the air, and the streetlights cast everything in amber. Thank you for tonight, Ethan said, for trusting me. I know it wasn't easy. Thank you for making it easier than I expected. Lena unlocked her car, then turned back to him. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why aren't you scared? Everyone else looks at me and sees all the ways I'm difficult, all the extra work. But you just don't. Why? Ethan was quiet for a moment, considering. Because I'm not looking for easy. Easy is boring. Easy doesn't teach you anything. And maybe because when I look at you, I don't see what's missing. I see what's there. Your strength, your honesty, The way you keep showing up even when it terrifies you. That's worth a hell of a lot more than whether you can tie your own shoes. Lena felt tears threatening again. I'm going to ruin your shirt if you keep saying things like that. I have other shirts. But he stepped back, giving her space. Drive safe. Text me when you get home so I know you made it. I will. She watched him walk to his own car, his shoulders straight, his stride easy. He waved before getting in, and she waved back, and then they were both pulling out of the parking lot and heading in opposite directions. The drive home felt different than it had on Sunday. Lighter, maybe. Less like fleeing and more like returning to regroup. Her phone buzzed at a red light, a text from Ethan. Already counting down to Saturday, Mia is going to love you. Lena typed back. Or she's going to run screaming. 50-50 odds. I'll take those odds. Sleep well. Back in her apartment, Lena stood in front of the bathroom mirror for a long time, studying her reflection. The same face she saw every morning, tired eyes, hair that needed cutting, a jaw that tended to clench when she was anxious. But there was something different too. Something in her expression that hadn't been there a week ago. Hope, maybe. Or possibility. Or just the faintest belief that maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to want something for herself again. She thought about Saturday, about meeting Mia, about all the ways it could go wrong. A 7-year-old's honesty could be brutal. Kids asked questions adults were too polite to voice. They pointed and stared and demanded explanations, but they also accepted with a simplicity adults had forgotten. They adapted. They moved on. Lena pulled out her phone and opened her photos, scrolling back through 3 years of careful documentation, progress photos from physical therapy, selfies with Sarah, pictures of sunsets she'd taken on days when she needed to remember the world could still be beautiful. She stopped on one from 2 years ago. A bad day. She'd been crying, her face blotchy and swollen, her eyes empty. She'd taken the photo as a reminder. This is what rock bottom looks like. This is what happens when you give up. She looked at that photo now and barely recognized the woman staring back. She wasn't that person anymore. She'd climbed up from that particular bottom, inch by painful inch, and even if she hadn't reached the top yet, she was moving. That counted for something. Saturday morning, Lena changed clothes 4 times before settling on jeans and a simple blue sweater. She'd debated whether to wear her more realistic prosthetics, the ones with artificial skin that almost passed for real, or the simpler mechanical ones she used at home. In the end, she chose honesty. The mechanical ones. No hiding. Ethan's house was a modest ranch in a neighborhood that looked like it had been frozen in 1972. Tree-lined streets, unfenced yards, basketball hoops above garage doors. Kids' bikes lay abandoned on lawns. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Lena sat in her car, breathing slowly, deliberately. Through the front window she could see movement, shadows crossing back and forth, the flicker of what might be a television. She could still leave. Could text that she was sick, that something had come up, that she needed to reschedule. Could retreat back into safety. But then the front door opened and a small figure came barreling out, dark curls flying, grass-stained knees, light-up sneakers flashing with each step. Mia. She ran straight to Lena's car window and peered in, her face breaking into a gap-toothed smile. Are you Lena? Dad said you were coming. He made me clean my room and everything. Do you want to see my rock collection? I have 43 rocks now. Dad says that's too many, but I don't think you can have too many rocks, do you? Lena found herself laughing despite her nerves. She opened the car door slowly, carefully, watching Mia's face for the moment when she'd notice, when she'd see the prosthetics and everything would change. Mia's eyes went wide. Whoa! Are those robot arms? That's so cool. Can I touch them? Dad says I have to ask before touching people's things. Lena blinked. You think they're cool? Yeah, they look like superhero arms. Can you punch through walls or lift really heavy things? Mia bounced on her toes, radiating pure 7-year-old energy. My friend Tommy has a robot leg because he was born without one and he can run super fast and his leg has stickers on it. Do your arms have stickers? No stickers. You should get stickers. Stickers make everything better. Ethan appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. Mia, give her space to actually get out of the car. Sorry. Mia stepped back approximately 6 inches. I'm giving space. See? Lena climbed out of the car, her heart pounding, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But Mia just kept smiling up at her with uncomplicated acceptance, and something in Lena's chest loosened. "It's nice to meet you, Mia," she said. "It's nice to meet you too. Come see my rocks and my dinosaur collection. And I have a fort in my room made out of blankets. Do you like pizza? Dad ordered pizza. He got pepperoni because that's my favorite, but he got plain too in case you don't like pepperoni because he said we should have options." Mia grabbed Lena's right hand and started tugging her toward the house, chattering nonstop about rocks and dinosaurs and pizza and whether Lena thought unicorns were real or just made up like dragons probably were, but maybe not because maybe dragons were just dinosaurs that people didn't understand yet. Ethan fell into step beside them, his expression a mixture of amusement and apology. "Sorry, I tried to prep her to be calm. It didn't take." "It's okay," Lena said, and was surprised to find she meant it. She's perfect. And somehow, impossibly, she was. Inside Ethan's house was exactly what Lena had expected. Lived in, slightly chaotic, decorated with the kind of accumulated life that came from actually using a space rather than staging it. Mia's artwork covered the refrigerator in overlapping layers. A basket of unfolded laundry sat on the couch. Books were stacked on every available surface, and the coffee table held what appeared to be an in-progress Lego castle. "Sorry about the mess," Ethan said, moving quickly to clear space. "We had big plans to clean before you got here, but someone decided to reorganize her entire rock collection instead." "It needed reorganizing," Mia protested. "I found 3 new ones at the park, and they didn't fit in the old system." "The old system being what exactly?" "By color and size and how interesting they are." Mia said this like it was obvious. She tugged Lena toward the hallway. "Come on, I'll show you." Lena glanced at Ethan, who just shrugged helplessly. "Fair warning, once she starts talking about rocks, it's hard to get her to stop. I've tried." Mia's room was an explosion of pink and purple and every shade in between. The promised blanket fort took up half the floor space, constructed with an engineering precision that suggested either natural talent or many, many failed attempts. Rocks lined the windowsill in careful rows, each one labeled with masking tape and Mia's careful printing. "This one's quartz," Mia said, holding up a cloudy white stone. "And this one's granite. And this one, I don't know what it is, but it's really shiny, so I call it the mystery rock." She set them down reverently, then looked up at Lena with sudden seriousness. "Can you pick up rocks with your robot arms?" "Mia," Ethan warned from the doorway. "What? I'm just asking. You said I should ask questions if I'm curious." "I meant polite questions." "That is polite. I didn't ask if it hurt or anything." Mia turned back to Lena. "Does it hurt?" Lena found herself smiling despite the tightness in her chest. There was no malice in Mia's curiosity, no judgment, just pure, uncomplicated interest. "Sometimes. Not the arms themselves, because they're not real. But where they attach to my shoulders, that can hurt if I wear them too long. Like when my shoes give me blisters? Sort of like that, yeah." "That makes sense." Mia accepted this with a nod, then held up the mystery rock. "Do you want to hold it? It's my favorite." Lena looked at the stone, smooth and heavy, and clearly precious to this little girl she'd just met. "I'm not sure I can hold it safely. If I drop it and it breaks, then it breaks." Mia shrugged. "Rocks break sometimes." "That's okay. My dad says the important thing is trying." The simple wisdom of it made Lena's throat tight. She held out her prosthetic hand, the mechanical fingers spread wide. Mia placed the rock carefully in her palm, and Lena concentrated on closing her fingers around it, feeling the resistance, the pressure sensors feeding back information to her brain. The rock was heavier than she'd expected, cool to the touch where it pressed against the parts of her hand that could still feel. "You did it!" Mia's face lit up. "See? You can hold rocks. That means you can do lots of things." "Mia, let Lena breathe," Ethan said gently. "Come on, pizza's here. We can continue the geology lesson after we eat." "Can Lena sit next to me?" "If she wants to." They settled around the kitchen table, a scarred wooden thing that had clearly seen years of family dinners and homework sessions and spilled drinks. The pizza boxes were already open, steam rising from the cheese. Ethan had set out plates and napkins, and Lena noticed he'd quietly cut one slice into smaller, manageable pieces and placed it on her plate without comment. Mia grabbed a slice with both hands, cheese stretching in long strings. "So do you have a job?" "I'm going to be a veterinarian astronaut when I grow up. That means I take care of animals in space." "That sounds like an important job," Lena said. "Space animals need care too." "Exactly. That's what I told Dad, but he said there aren't any animals in space yet, and I said, yet is the important word." Ethan caught Lena's eye across the table, his expression warm with affection for his daughter. "She's not wrong." "What about you?" Mia asked through a mouthful of pizza. "What's your job?" "I don't have one right now. I used to work at a factory, checking to make sure things were made correctly." "Why did you stop?" "Mia," Ethan started. "It's okay," Lena said. She took a breath, choosing honesty. "I had an accident at work. A big machine hurt me, and that's how I lost my arms. After that, I couldn't do that job anymore." Mia considered this, her small face serious. "That's sad. Did the machine say sorry?" "Machines can't say sorry, sweetie," Ethan said gently. "Well, they should. If they hurt people, they should say sorry." Mia took another bite of pizza, then brightened. "But now you can get a new job. Maybe you could work with my dad. He makes pictures for books." "Book covers," Ethan corrected. "And I work from home, by myself." "You're home with me. You're at school most of the day. But I'm still here. That counts." Mia turned to Lena. "Do you have kids?" "No." "Do you want kids?" "Mia, that's personal. You said I could ask questions. Age-appropriate questions about things that are our business." Mia huffed but didn't push. Instead, she launched into a detailed explanation of her current favorite dinosaur, Parasaurolophus, because it had a cool head crest, and why her teacher was wrong about Stegosaurus being the best dinosaur, limited brain capacity, and not very fast. Lena found herself relaxing into the rhythm of it. Mia's chatter, Ethan's gentle interjections, the simple domesticity of sharing a meal. This was what normal looked like. This was what she'd thought she'd lost forever. After dinner, Mia insisted on showing Lena her blanket fort. They crawled inside, Lena moving carefully, aware of her prosthetics catching on fabric, and sat cross-legged in the dim, filtered light. Mia had strung Christmas lights along the edges, and they cast everything in soft gold. "This is my secret place," Mia said quietly, her voice dropping to match the intimacy of the space. "When I'm sad about my mom, I come here." Lena's chest tightened. "Your dad told me about your mom. I'm sorry you lost her." "Do you have a mom?" "I do. She lives in Virginia." "Does she ever make you sad?" "Sometimes. When we argue or when I miss her?" Mia nodded sagely. "My mom made me sad sometimes too, like when she wouldn't let me have ice cream for breakfast. But mostly she made me happy." She picked at a loose thread on the blanket beneath them. "Do you think she can see me? From heaven?" Lena thought about all the easy platitudes she could offer, all the comfortable lies adults told children to make death less frightening. But Mia deserved honesty. "I don't know," Lena said. "I hope so. I think if there's any way for her to watch over you, she would." "Dad says the same thing." Mia looked up, her eyes too old for her age. "I don't remember her as much as I used to. Sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like. That makes me feel bad." "Forgetting doesn't mean you didn't love her." "That's what Dad says too." Mia scooted closer, her small body warm against Lena's side. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Does it make you sad, not having arms?" The question was so direct it took Lena's breath away. "Yes. Sometimes it makes me very sad. But you still smile. I saw you smile at dinner." "I can be sad about what I lost and still find things to smile about. Both things can be true at the same time." Mia thought about this. Like, how I'm sad my mom died, but happy that I have my dad? Exactly like that. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the fort feeling like a small universe unto itself, separate from the rest of the world. "I like you," Mia announced. "You don't talk to me like I'm a baby, and you have cool robot arms, and you're making my dad happy. How do you know I'm making him happy? Because he sings now. He didn't used to sing, but this week he's been singing while he makes breakfast, and that means he's happy. Lena felt something warm and terrifying unfold in her chest. I like you too, Mia. Good. Then you should come over more. We could watch movies. Do you like movies? My dad has about 1 million of them. Some of them are boring grown-up movies, but some are good. What kind of movies do you like? Adventure movies? With heroes and quests and magic. Mia's eyes lit up. We could watch one now. Dad bought popcorn. They emerged from the fort to find Ethan cleaning up the kitchen, loading dishes into the dishwasher with practiced efficiency. He looked up when they appeared, his expression softening. Survivors emerged from the sacred fort, he said. Did you pass initiation? She passed, Mia declared. She knows about being sad and happy at the same time. Can we watch a movie? Please. I already asked Lena and she said yes. I said it sounded nice, Lena corrected. I didn't commit to... Please? Mia deployed the full force of her 7-year-old pleading eyes. We never have people over. It's always just me and Dad. This is special. Ethan looked at Lena with apology in his eyes. You don't have to. If you want to head out. No, Lena heard herself say. A movie sounds perfect. They settled on the couch, Mia in the middle, wedged between Lena and Ethan like a small, fidgeting bridge. She'd chosen Moana, which she announced she'd seen probably 100 times, but never got tired of. The opening credits had barely started before she was singing along, her voice high and unself-conscious. Lena watched the movie without really seeing it, too aware of Mia's warmth against her side, of Ethan's presence on the other side of his daughter, of the strange domestic tableau they created. This wasn't a date. This was something else entirely, something that felt dangerous in its normalcy. Halfway through, Mia's singing quieted. Her head drooped against Lena's shoulder, her breathing evening out into the steady rhythm of sleep. She does this, Ethan whispered. Gets herself wound up, then crashes hard. Should I move? Do you want to? Lena looked down at Mia's sleeping face, peaceful and trusting. No. They finished the movie in near silence, neither wanting to disturb Mia. When the credits rolled, Ethan carefully scooped his daughter into his arms. She stirred but didn't wake, just mumbled something about boats and coconuts before settling against his chest. Be right back, he mouthed. Lena waited on the couch, listening to his footsteps on the stairs, the creak of Mia's bedroom door, the low murmur of his voice as he tucked her in. The house felt too quiet without Mia's chatter, too intimate. When Ethan returned, he looked exhausted and content in equal measure. Sorry, she doesn't usually fall asleep on guests. I didn't mind. I know, I could tell. He sat back down on the couch, leaving a careful distance between them. Thank you for being so patient with her, with all her questions. She's wonderful, Ethan, honest and curious and completely herself. You've done an incredible job with her. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water, but she makes it worth it. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Lena was learning meant he was nervous. So, what did you think? Honest answer. About what? About this. Us. The reality of my life versus the theoretical version we talked about over pho. Lena pulled her legs up onto the couch, wrapping her good arm around her knees. I think it's terrifying. Terrifying bad or terrifying good? Both. I came here expecting to be the complicated one, the one who needed accommodation and patience. But Mia, her voice caught. She just accepted me. No hesitation, no pity, just pure acceptance. I don't know what to do with that. Accept it back? Ethan suggested gently. It's not that simple. Why not? Because... Lena struggled to find the words. Because I'm used to people leaving when things get hard. I'm used to being too much, too difficult, too broken. But Mia looked at my prosthetics and thought they were cool. She asked honest questions without making me feel like a freak. And you, she gestured helplessly at him, you keep acting like helping me is normal, like it doesn't bother you. Because it doesn't. It should. It bothers everyone eventually. I'm not everyone. Ethan shifted closer, his voice firm but gentle. And you need to stop deciding for me what I can and can't handle. I'm a grown man, Lena. I can make my own choices about what's worth my time and effort. But for how long? A week? A month? 6 months? How long before the reality of this gets old? I don't know. The honesty of it made Lena look up. Ethan's expression was open, vulnerable. I can't promise you forever. I can't promise I'll never mess up or say the wrong thing or have moments where I don't know what to do. But I can promise I'm not going to run away the first time things get difficult. I did that once, after Rachel died. I ran from everything that reminded me of her. I ran from grief, from friends, from anything that might hurt. And you know what I learned? What? That running doesn't make the pain go away. It just makes you lonely while you hurt. He reached out, his hand hovering near hers. Can I? Lena nodded, and his fingers closed around her right hand, warm and solid and real. I'm here because I want to be, Ethan said. Because when I'm with you, I feel like myself again. Not the widower, not just me as dad, just Ethan, a guy who likes a woman and wants to know her better, who wants to see where this goes. Even with all the complications? Especially with the complications. Because they're part of you, and I'm starting to think I really like who you are. Lena felt tears streaming down her face, hot and unstoppable. This is crazy. We barely know each other. So let's fix that. Ethan brushed a tear away with his thumb. Stay. Talk to me. Tell me something real. Like what? Like what you're most afraid of. Not the surface fear, the deep one. The thing that keeps you up at 3 a.m. Lena took a shaky breath. That I'll never be whole again. That no matter how much I adapt, or how many tools I use, or how well I learn to function with prosthetics, there will always be this fundamental piece of me that's missing. And that anyone who chooses to be with me is settling, accepting less because they feel sorry for me. And what are you most afraid of with me, specifically? That you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not worth the effort. That helping me tie my shoes and cut my food and do 1,000 other small tasks will stop feeling like care and start feeling like burden. That you'll look at me the way Marcus did, like I'm a sad reminder of everything that went wrong. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. Can I tell you what I see when I look at you? Okay. I see someone who survived something that would have broken most people. I see someone who keeps showing up even when it's terrifying. I see someone who's honest about her fears instead of hiding behind false confidence. I see someone my daughter trusted instinctively, which is rare and precious. And yeah, I see your prosthetics. I see the physical reality of what you've lost. But that's not what defines you in my mind. What does? Your strength, your humor, the way you talk about painting like it's something precious you lost. The way you listen, really listen when people talk. The way you don't bullshit me or yourself about how hard this is. He squeezed her hand gently. I'm not settling, Lena. I'm choosing. There's a difference. How can you be so sure? Because I spent 3 years alone. 3 years where people tried to set me up with nice women who didn't challenge me, who didn't ask hard questions, who treated me like a project to fix. And I said no to all of them because I didn't want easy. I wanted real. I wanted someone who understood that life is messy and painful and complicated, and that's okay. That's human. Lena looked at their joined hands, his whole and hers ending too soon. I don't know how to do this. How to let someone see all of me, the hard parts, the ugly parts, the parts that need help, without feeling ashamed. Maybe you start by letting me see one part at a time. We don't have to solve everything tonight. We just have to be honest with each other. I'm scared, Lena whispered. Me too. Terrified, actually. Ethan's smile was soft. But I think maybe that means we're doing something right, something worth being scared about. They sat in the quiet for a while, the house settling around them, the distant sound of Mia's music box playing upstairs. Lena felt something shifting inside her, not breaking open, but slowly, carefully unfurling, like a flower that had been closed so long it had forgotten how to bloom. Tell me about Rachel, she said suddenly. Ethan looked surprised. What do you want to know? What you loved about her, what you miss most. I need to know I'm not just a replacement, that you see me as my own person. You're nothing like Rachel, Ethan said immediately. She was a force of nature, loud and bold and always in motion, She filled every room she entered, made friends with strangers in grocery stores, couldn't sit still to save her life. And you loved that about her? I did, but it also exhausted me sometimes. I'm quieter, more internal. We balanced each other, but we also clashed. We were passionate about each other and passionate in our arguments. Our last fight, the one before she died, we were screaming at each other about something so stupid I can't even remember what it was. Just ego and pride and stubbornness. His voice cracked slightly. What I miss most is the mundane stuff. The way she sang off key in the shower, how she left coffee cups everywhere and could never find her keys, the way she'd climb into bed and press her cold feet against my legs just to make me yelp. The small, ordinary moments of sharing a life. You still love her. I always will. She's Mia's mother. She was my partner for 8 years. But loving who she was doesn't mean I can't love someone else. The heart doesn't work on a scarcity model. Lena absorbed this, testing it against her fears. I'm not loud. I'm not bold. You're honest. You're brave in different ways. You're thoughtful and careful, and you don't take anything for granted. Ethan met her eyes. I'm not looking for Rachel version 2. I'm looking for Lena version 1. The real you. Whoever that is. I'm not sure I know who that is anymore. Then let's figure it out together. No pressure, no timelines, just two people getting to know each other, with a very opinionated 7-year-old occasionally offering commentary. Lena found herself smiling despite the tears still on her cheeks. She does have a lot of opinions. Wait until she finds out you're sticking around. She'll have 1,000 plans for things you should do together. Fair warning. I haven't said I'm sticking around. Haven't you? Ethan's smile was knowing. You're still here. You met my daughter. You sat through Moana even though I'm pretty sure you weren't watching. You're having this conversation instead of running for the door. That tells me something. Maybe I'm just a glutton for punishment. Or maybe you're tired of running from the possibility that something good might happen if you let it. Lena looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd somehow slipped past all her defenses without even trying, who made helping feel like partnership instead of charity, who looked at her daughter with such fierce love it made her chest ache, who was offering her something she'd thought was lost forever. I want to try, she said quietly. I want to see what this could be, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll tell me if it gets to be too much, if the reality of being with me stops being worth it. Don't just slowly pull away like Marcus did. Don't let it fester until you resent me. Just be honest. I promise. But you have to promise me the same thing. If I screw up, if I say something insensitive, if I do something that makes you feel diminished, tell me. Let me fix it. Don't just assume I'm like everyone else who let you down. Deal. They shook on it, the gesture formal and slightly ridiculous and absolutely perfect. Then Ethan leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Can I kiss you? He asked. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs. Yes. The kiss was soft and careful and tasted like possibility. When they pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. I really like you, Lena Moore, he whispered. I really like you too, Ethan Brooks, even though you're probably going to drive me crazy. Fair. You'll probably drive me crazy too. We'll be crazy together. Lena stayed another hour, talking about everything and nothing, their childhoods, their favorite books, their most embarrassing moments. When she finally left, Ethan walked her to her car, kissed her goodbye under the streetlight, and made her promise to text when she got home. Driving through the dark streets, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Not happiness, exactly. Not yet. But something close to it. Something that felt like hope wearing different clothes. Her phone buzzed at a red light, a text from Ethan. Mia just woke up long enough to ask if you're her friend now. I said yes, she said good, then fell back asleep. I think you're stuck with us. Lena typed back, there are worse things to be stuck with. Like what? I'll make you a list, looking forward to it. Sweet dreams, Lena. Back in her apartment, Lena stood in her bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Same face, same body, same prosthetics that would never be real arms no matter how advanced the technology. But something had changed. Some fundamental shift in how she saw herself. She wasn't just the woman who'd lost her arms anymore. She was the woman Mia thought had cool robot arms. The woman Ethan chose to spend time with. The woman who was brave enough to keep trying even when everything inside her screamed to give up. She thought about painting, about the watercolor set she'd stared at in the art store, about Ethan's words, that art wasn't about the tool, it was about the vision. Maybe it was time to find out if he was right. Maybe it was time to stop defining herself by what was missing and start discovering what was still there. Maybe, just maybe, wholeness didn't mean having all the pieces. Maybe it meant accepting the shape you were and building a life within it. Lena fell asleep that night with Mia's words echoing in her mind. You can be sad and happy at the same time. Both things could be true. She was learning to live in that space between. The weeks that followed fell into a rhythm Lena hadn't expected, gentle and ordinary in ways that felt revolutionary. Tuesday nights became dinner at Ethan's place, where Mia insisted on setting an extra place at the table and would launch into detailed recaps of her school week before the food even hit the plates. Thursdays, Ethan would bring Mia to Lena's apartment after soccer practice, and they'd order takeout while Mia sprawled on the floor doing homework and asking questions about everything from the water cycle to whether robots could dream. Saturdays were for the three of them together, farmers markets where Mia collected samples like they were precious treasures, walks in the park where Mia would find more rocks to add to her ever-expanding collection, quiet afternoons where Ethan worked on design projects while Lena and Mia watched nature documentaries and debated whether dolphins or octopuses were smarter. It was easy in a way that terrified Lena. She kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the moment when the novelty would wear off and the reality would become too heavy. But that moment didn't come. Instead, there were smaller moments that felt both harder and more important. Like the morning 3 weeks in when Lena's shower chair broke and she had to call Ethan at 7 a.m., her voice shaking with humiliation, to ask if he could come help her. He'd arrived 20 minutes later with coffee and a replacement chair he'd picked up from a medical supply store that wasn't even open yet. He'd called in a favor from a friend who worked there. He'd installed it without comment, tested it to make sure it was stable, then kissed her forehead and told her he had to get Mia to school, but he'd see her that evening. Or the afternoon when Mia had asked, with the blunt honesty only children possessed, why Lena couldn't just get better arms that worked like real ones. Lena had frozen. The question hitting a nerve she didn't know was still exposed. But Ethan had crouched down to Mia's level and explained gently that some things couldn't be fixed, only adapted to, and that Lena's arms were already pretty amazing even if they were different. Mia had accepted this with a thoughtful nod, then asked if Lena wanted to help her build a Lego spaceship. Or the night when Lena had tried to cook dinner for them, something simple, pasta with vegetables, and had ended up in tears of frustration when she couldn't manage to drain the pot without scalding herself with steam. Ethan had found her sitting on the kitchen floor, the pot still boiling on the stove, her prosthetics abandoned on the counter because the heat sensors were going haywire. He turned off the stove, slid down beside her, and just sat there in silence until she could breathe again. Then he'd said quietly, "Next time, just ask me to drain it. There's no prize for doing everything yourself." "I should be able to do it myself," Lena had said, her voice thick with shame. "Why? I can't reach the top shelf in my kitchen without a step stool. Does that make me less capable?" "That's different." "Is it?" "We all have limitations, Lena. Yours are just more visible." He'd pulled her against his chest, and she'd let herself collapse into him, exhausted from fighting battles only she seemed to think mattered. "Let me help. Not because you're broken, but because that's what people who care about each other do." It was moments like these that slowly, painfully, began to reshape how Lena understood herself. Not as someone fundamentally damaged, but as someone learning a new way of moving through the world. Someone who needed help sometimes, yes, but who also had things to offer. Like the way she could see design flaws in Ethan's book covers that he'd missed, her quality control eye still sharp, even if her hands weren't. Or how she could explain complex emotional concepts to Mia in ways the 7-year-old understood, drawing on her own experience of grief and loss. Or the patience she'd developed through years of physical therapy, a willingness to try and fail and try again that Mia was already starting to emulate. One Sunday morning 6 weeks in, Lena woke in Ethan's bed to find Mia standing beside her, clutching a piece of paper. "Are you awake?" Mia whispered. Lena blinked sleep from her eyes. She and Ethan had been officially together for a month now, and she'd started staying over on weekends when Mia requested it. I am now. What's up? I made you something. Mia thrust the paper forward. For you, because you're my friend. It was a drawing, crude in the way children's art always was, but the intention was clear. 3 stick figures stood in front of a house. One tall with dark hair labeled Dad, one small with curly hair labeled Me, and one with carefully drawn mechanical arms labeled Lena. We're a family, Mia explained, pointing at each figure. See? You're part of it now. Lena's throat closed. Mia, do you like it? I used my good markers, the ones that smell like fruit. I love it. Lena's voice cracked. It's the best gift anyone's ever given me. Mia beamed, then climbed onto the bed, worming her way between Lena and the wall. Can we have pancakes? Dad makes really good pancakes on Sundays. I think we can arrange that. They found Ethan in the kitchen, already mixing batter, his hair sticking up in several directions and his t-shirt worn soft from years of washing. He looked up when they entered, his expression softening into something Lena was learning to recognize, contentment mixed with quiet joy. Morning, I heard the delegation arriving. He nodded toward Mia. I'm guessing someone's requested pancakes? With chocolate chips, Mia announced, climbing onto a stool at the counter. And can Lena stay all day? Please? We could go to the aquarium. I want to show her the octopuses. Lena might have plans, sweetheart. I don't, Lena said, surprising herself. The aquarium sounds perfect. The aquarium was crowded with families. Parents chasing toddlers, teenagers clustered around the shark tank, elderly couples moving slowly through the exhibits. Mia dragged them from tank to tank, her enthusiasm infectious, her questions endless. How long could sea turtles hold their breath? Why were jellyfish see-through? Did fish sleep with their eyes open because they didn't have eyelids? Ethan fielded questions with practiced patience while Lena watched, something warm and terrifying growing in her chest. This could be her life, this ordinary, beautiful, complicated life with this man and his daughter, if she let it, if she was brave enough. They stopped at the touch tank, where Mia immediately plunged her hands into the water, squealing when a ray glided past. A young volunteer approached them, smiling broadly. Would you like to touch one? They're very gentle. Lena hesitated. The water was shallow enough that she could reach in with her prosthetic, but the mechanics weren't designed for submersion. I don't think I can. Sure you can, Ethan said quietly. He turned to the volunteer. Do you have a step stool so she can reach more easily? The volunteer looked confused until she noticed Lena's prosthetics. Her expression shifted, not to pity, but to understanding. Of course, give me just a second. She returned with a small platform and positioned it carefully. Lena stepped up, and suddenly the water was close enough that she could lean down and dip her right hand in, her real hand, the one that could still feel. A ray glided past, and Lena touched its wing gently. The texture was unlike anything she'd expected, smooth and slippery and alive. She laughed, delighted, and looked up to find Ethan watching her with such open affection it made her chest tight. Feel it! Feel it! Mia was bouncing beside her. Isn't it cool? It's amazing. They spent another hour at the aquarium, then grabbed ice cream from a vendor outside. Mia got chocolate all over her face within 30 seconds, and Ethan spent 5 minutes trying to clean her up with inadequate napkins while she wiggled and protested. Hold still, you're making it worse. You're making it worse. You're getting it in my hair. That's because you won't stop moving. Lena watched them, laughing, and felt something click into place. This was family, not the perfect, curated version people posted on social media. The messy, frustrated, loving reality of it. The way Ethan's patience frayed at the edges but never broke. The way Mia pushed boundaries but always came back to center. The way they orbited each other with practiced ease. Lena, help, Mia called. Tell Dad he's doing it wrong. I think you're both doing it wrong, Lena said diplomatically. Traitor, Ethan muttered, but he was smiling. Later that evening, after they dropped a sugar-crashed Mia at home and she'd fallen asleep almost immediately, Ethan and Lena sat on his back porch with wine and the kind of comfortable silence that only comes from knowing someone's presence is enough. Thank you for today, Ethan said finally. Mia needed it. I think I needed it too. I needed it, Lena admitted. I've spent so long being alone that I forgot what this feels like, being part of something. Does it scare you? Terrifies me. She took a sip of wine. What if I mess it up? What if Mia gets attached and then I can't handle this and I have to leave? What if I break her heart? What if you don't? Ethan countered. What if this works? What if you're exactly what we need and we're exactly what you need? What if being scared doesn't mean you're doing something wrong? You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's the hardest thing I've ever done besides grieving Rachel, but it's also the best thing. Coming home and having you here. Seeing Mia light up when you walk through the door. Feeling like I'm building something instead of just surviving. Lena set down her wine glass. I need to tell you something. Okay. I've been thinking about getting a job again. Not factory work, obviously, but something. I've been looking into remote quality assurance positions, software testing, that kind of thing. My disability advocate thinks I could get accommodations, adaptive software. It wouldn't be the same as what I did before, but it would be something. Ethan's face lit up. Lena, that's amazing. What brought this on? Watching you work, seeing how proud you are of what you create. I want that again. I want to feel useful, like I'm contributing instead of just existing. She paused. And I bought watercolors. You did? Last week. I haven't used them yet. I've just been staring at them, but I'm going to try. I don't know if I can paint the way I used to, but maybe I can find a new way. Ethan pulled her into his arms, and Lena let herself sink into him. I'm so proud of you. Don't be proud yet. I haven't actually done anything. Yes, you have. You're trying. You're choosing to move forward instead of staying stuck. That takes courage. They sat like that as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and Lena thought about all the things she'd been afraid to want. A partner who saw her as whole, a family that accepted her without reservation, a future that held more than just survival. The following Tuesday, Lena had a video interview for a remote QA position with a software company. She spent hours preparing, researching the company, practicing answers to common questions. Ethan helped her set up the camera angle, making sure her prosthetics were visible. Own it, he'd said. If they have a problem with it, you don't want to work there anyway. The interview went well. The hiring manager asked direct questions about accommodations she'd need, what adaptive software she was familiar with, how she managed detail-oriented work. Lena answered honestly, explained her background in quality control, demonstrated the kind of systematic thinking that transferred across industries. She got the job offer 2 days later. When she called Ethan to tell him, she started crying before she could get the words out. Hey, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I got it. I got the job. There was a beat of silence, then Ethan was whooping so loudly she had to hold the phone away from her ear. Lena, that's incredible. Oh my God, we're celebrating. Tonight. I'm making dinner, something fancy, we're breaking out the good wine. Ethan. And Mia's going to lose her mind when I tell her. She's been asking every day if you heard back yet. You told her about the interview? Of course I did. She's invested in your success. We both are. That night they celebrated with homemade lasagna and sparkling cider for Mia, who insisted on making a toast. To Lena's new job, she announced, holding up her glass. And to being brave even when you're scared. Where did you learn that? Lena asked, touched. From you, Mia said simply. Dad says you're the bravest person he knows because you keep trying even when things are hard. Lena looked at Ethan, who shrugged with a small smile. I'm not wrong. As winter deepened into early spring, Lena started her new job and found herself falling into yet another rhythm. Mornings working at her desk, lunch breaks where she'd video call with Ethan and hear about his latest design challenge. Afternoons testing software and documenting bugs with the same meticulous attention to detail she'd brought to her factory work. Her colleagues were scattered across the country, which meant most communication happened through chat and video calls. It was isolating in some ways, but also freeing. Nobody treated her differently because nobody saw her except in carefully framed video squares. She started painting again, too. Nothing fancy at first, just abstract washes of color, experiments with brush holders that attached to her prosthetics, learning to control pressure and movement in new ways. The results were messy and often frustrating, but there were moments when something worked, when color bloomed across paper in a way that felt intentional, and those moments made the failures worthwhile. One evening, she showed Ethan her latest attempt, a sunset over water that was more impression than precision. "I can't make it look realistic anymore," she said, frustration evident in her voice. "My control isn't fine enough. Everything's too loose, too abstract." "Maybe that's not a bad thing," Ethan said, studying the painting. "Maybe you're developing a new style, something uniquely yours. Or maybe I'm just bad at this now. Or maybe you're being too hard on yourself." He set the painting down carefully. "Show this to Mia. I bet she'll love it." He was right. Mia declared it the most beautiful painting she'd ever seen and asked if she could hang it in her room. Lena framed it herself, a clumsy job that took 3 attempts and more cursing than she'd care to admit. But when she saw it on Mia's wall, surrounded by the little girl's drawings and posters, something in her chest settled. But the real test came on a Saturday in March, 3 months into their relationship, when Lena woke to the phantom pains that sometimes still plagued her, nerve endings that no longer existed, screaming with remembered trauma. She'd managed to hide these episodes from Ethan so far, timing them to days when she was alone. But this one was bad, worse than usual. She tried to breathe through it, tried to stay quiet, but a whimper escaped before she could stop it. "Lena?" Ethan was awake immediately, his hand on her shoulder. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Go back to sleep." "You're crying. That's not nothing. It's just—" Another wave of pain crashed through her, and she curled into herself. "Phantom pain. It'll pass. It always does. What can I do?" "Nothing. There's nothing anyone can do. I just have to wait it out." But Ethan didn't go back to sleep. He stayed awake beside her, his presence steady, occasionally asking if she needed water, or medication, or ice. When the pain finally began to recede an hour later, Lena was exhausted and humiliated. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to wake you." "Don't apologize for being in pain." Ethan's voice was firm. "How often does this happen?" "Once or twice a month. Sometimes more if the weather changes suddenly, or if I'm stressed." "And you've been dealing with it alone?" "What else was I supposed to do? Call you at 3 a.m. to witness me falling apart?" "Yes," Ethan said simply. "That's exactly what you're supposed to do, because that's what partners do. We show up for each other, even during the ugly parts, especially during the ugly parts. It's not your problem. Stop deciding for me what is and isn't my problem." There was heat in his voice now, frustration breaking through. "You keep doing this. You keep trying to protect me from the reality of your life, like I'm some fragile thing that can't handle it. I'm not fragile, Lena. I'm here, fully here, and I need you to trust that I mean it when I say I'm not going anywhere. You say that now, I say that always. 3 months in, 3 years in, 30 years in, I'm choosing you, every day. Stop waiting for me to leave and let yourself believe I might actually stay." Lena felt tears streaming down her face again, but these were different. Not pain, but something closer to relief. "I'm scared. I know. But you don't have to be scared alone anymore. That's the whole point of this." He pulled her close, and she let herself collapse against him, bone-tired and emotionally wrung out. "Next time this happens, you wake me up. Deal?" "Deal." They fell back asleep, tangled together. And when Lena woke in the morning, the first thing she felt wasn't fear or shame. It was gratitude. The conversation shifted something fundamental between them. Lena stopped hiding the hard parts. When she needed help, she asked. When she was frustrated, she said so. When the weight of adaptation felt crushing, she let Ethan see it instead of performing competence. And Ethan did the same. He admitted when Mia's questions about Rachel left him gutted and unsure. He talked about the guilt that still surfaced sometimes when he was happy, the irrational feeling that joy was a betrayal of his dead wife. He confessed his fears that he was screwing up as a father, that Mia would grow up damaged by loss no matter how hard he tried to protect her. They learned to be messy together, to fight when they needed to, sharp disagreements about parenting approaches, about whose turn it was to compromise, about the 100 small incompatibilities that emerge when two people try to build a life together. But they also learned to repair, to apologize, to choose each other even when it was hard. One Sunday afternoon in April, Ethan asked Lena to move in with them. They were in his kitchen, Lena chopping vegetables one-handed while he handled the parts that required more precision. Mia was at a birthday party, giving them a rare few hours alone. "I've been thinking," Ethan said, his tone carefully casual in a way that meant he'd rehearsed this. "You're here most of the time anyway. Half your clothes are in my closet. Your toothbrush is in the bathroom. Mia asks every morning if you're coming over that day." "Ethan, I'm not proposing. I'm not asking for forever. I'm just asking if you want to stop splitting time between two places and actually live here. With us. Officially." Lena set down the knife, her heart pounding. "That's a big step." "I know. And if you're not ready, that's okay. We can keep doing what we're doing. But I want you here, Lena. Not just visiting, actually here. Coming home at the end of the day and knowing you'll be here. Waking up every morning and having coffee together. Building a life that includes all three of us." "What about Mia? Have you talked to her?" "I floated the idea. She asked if that meant you'd be here for breakfast every day. When I said yes, she said good and went back to her Legos." Despite her nerves, Lena laughed. "That's it? That's her whole response? She's 7. She processes big changes through small details." "But yeah, she's on board. The question is whether you are." Lena looked around the kitchen, at the crayon drawings on the fridge, the collection of coffee mugs that had accumulated over years, the worn spot on the floor where Ethan always stood when he cooked. This place already felt more like home than her apartment ever had. "Yes," she said. "I want to move in." Ethan's face split into a grin so wide it looked painful. "Yeah? Yeah. But I need time to pack my stuff, give notice on my lease. Take all the time you need. I've waited 3 years to feel like I had a partner again. I can wait a few more weeks." He kissed her then, thorough and deep, and Lena let herself fall into it, into him, into the terrifying possibility that this might actually work. Moving in was both easier and harder than Lena expected. The logistics were simple. Most of her furniture went to donation, her clothes and personal items fitting easily into the space Ethan cleared for her. But the emotional weight was enormous. Every box she unpacked felt like a declaration. Every drawer she filled said, "I'm staying. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you." Mia helped enthusiastically, insisting on arranging Lena's books on the shelf in the living room and declaring which of Lena's paintings should go where. She'd grown attached to several of them, especially one abstract piece that Lena had titled After the Storm, swirls of gray and blue that gradually lightened to gold. "This one goes in the hallway," Mia announced with authority, "so everyone can see it when they come in." "You're very decisive about this," Lena observed. "It's important. Art has to be in the right place or it doesn't work." "Where did you learn that?" "Dad told me. He's an expert because of his job." Ethan appeared in the doorway, paint samples in hand. "I'm an expert now." "Mia says so," Lena said with a smile. "Well, if Mia says so, it must be true." He held up the paint samples. "Okay, master decorator, which color for Lena's office? The soft gray or the warm beige?" They'd cleared out what had been Rachel's craft room, a space that had sat largely untouched for 3 years because neither Ethan nor Mia could bear to disturb it. But when Lena had tentatively suggested she could just work at the kitchen table, Ethan had said firmly, "No, you need your own space. We should do something with that room anyway. Rachel would want it used, not preserved like a shrine." It had taken them a weekend to pack up Rachel's supplies, fabric and thread and half-finished projects, but Ethan had done it with Mia's help, explaining gently what they were keeping and what they were donating. Mia had asked if it was okay to let go of her mother's things, and Ethan had said, "Your mom wasn't her things. She was her love and her laugh and all the ways she's still part of us. We're not letting go of that. We're just making room for the life we have now." Now that room was being transformed into Lena's office, a place where she could work and paint and have space that was hers. "The gray," Lena said, looking at the samples. "It feels calmer." "Gray it is." Ethan looked at the room, then at her. "You okay? I know this is a lot of change." "I'm okay. Better than okay." And she meant it. That night, after Mia was asleep and they were finally alone, Ethan pulled Lena onto the couch and wrapped his arms around her. "Welcome home," he said quietly. And for the first time in 3 years, Lena felt like she actually had one. Living together wasn't the fairy tale Lena had secretly feared it might need to be. It was better because it was real. Messy mornings when Mia couldn't find her homework and Ethan burned the toast. Quiet evenings when they were all too tired to talk and just existed in the same space. Hard conversations about boundaries and schedules and whose turn it was to handle the dishes. It was life. Unfiltered and unpolished, and Lena found herself falling in love with the ordinary texture of it. But there were still moments when the weight of everything caught up with her. Days when the phantom pains came so hard and fast she couldn't work, couldn't paint, could barely function beyond breathing through each wave. Mornings when she woke up angry at her body for its limitations, furious at the universe for the randomness of tragedy. Nights when she lay awake wondering if Ethan would eventually grow tired of being the one who had to open every jar, button every difficult shirt, reach every high shelf. It was on one of those nights, 6 months after she'd moved in, that the real test came. They'd had a long week. Mia had been sick with a stomach bug that left her miserable and clingy. Ethan's biggest client had requested rush revisions on a project he'd thought was finished. Lena's company had rolled out new testing software that was supposed to make her job easier, but instead made everything twice as complicated. They were all running on fumes and short tempers. The breaking point came over something stupid, a coffee cup left on the counter instead of in the dishwasher. Lena had asked Ethan to load it, distracted by work, and he'd snapped back that she could do it herself. He wasn't her servant. She'd replied that she literally couldn't do it herself with her laptop balanced on her prosthetic and a work call in 5 minutes. He'd said maybe she should manage her time better. She'd said maybe he should be more aware of her limitations. It escalated from there, both of them saying things they didn't mean, old wounds surfacing. Ethan accused her of using her disability as an excuse not to pull her weight around the house. Lena accused him of resenting her for needing help. They shouted at each other in sharp, cutting whispers so they wouldn't wake Mia, which somehow made it worse, all that fury compressed into hissed syllables. Finally, Lena grabbed her coat and walked out. She made it 3 blocks before the adrenaline wore off, and she realized she had nowhere to go. Her apartment was gone. Sarah had moved to Portland 2 months ago. She stood on the sidewalk in the dark, shaking with anger and hurt, and the terrible knowledge that she'd just proven Marcus right. She was too much trouble, too difficult, too broken for anyone to love long term. Her phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "I'm sorry, please come back. We need to talk about this." She stared at the message for a long time, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Every instinct screamed at her to keep walking, to prove she didn't need him, to protect herself by leaving before he could leave her. But she thought about Mia sleeping upstairs, about the office with gray walls where her paintings hung, about 6 months of choosing each other even when it was hard. She typed back, "Walking back now." When she entered the house, Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands. He looked up when she came in, his eyes red. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I was tired and stressed and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair." "I'm sorry too." Lena sat down across from him, her coat still on. "I do rely on you for a lot, more than I sometimes acknowledge. And I know that's exhausting. It's not..." Ethan stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "Okay, sometimes it is exhausting, but not because of you specifically. Being the only adult in the house for 3 years was exhausting. Being responsible for everything was exhausting. That didn't change when you moved in. I just had someone to share it with, which made it better. But I think I've been treating you like you should magically make everything easier when that's not realistic. And I've been so afraid of being a burden that I've been watching for signs you're getting tired of me. So when you snapped about the coffee cup, it confirmed every fear I've had. That eventually I'd be too much work." "You're not too much work, Lena. You're the right amount of work because you're worth it. But I think we need to figure out how to share the load better, how to communicate when we're overwhelmed before it turns into a fight." They talked for 2 hours, working through division of labor and expectations, and the ways they'd both been carrying resentments without voicing them. Ethan admitted he sometimes felt guilty asking Lena to do certain tasks because he didn't want to seem insensitive to her limitations. Lena admitted she sometimes avoided asking for help because she didn't want to seem helpless. They were both trying so hard to protect each other that they'd stopped being honest. "I need you to tell me when something I ask you to do isn't feasible," Ethan said. "Not assume I should know. I can't read your mind." And I need you to tell me when you're overwhelmed instead of letting it build up until you explode over a coffee cup. Deal. But we're also getting a dishwasher with a voice activation feature because this is ridiculous. Technology exists. We should use it. Despite everything, Lena laughed. That seems excessive. My entire tax return is going toward adaptive equipment and smart home features. By the end of summer, this place is going to be like the Jetsons. You'll see. He was true to his word. Over the next few months, the house slowly transformed. Voice-activated lights and appliances, automatic door openers, a digital assistant that could control everything from the thermostat to the coffee maker, adaptive kitchen tools that Lena could use independently, jar openers that required minimal grip strength, one-handed cutting boards, electric can openers mounted under cabinets. Some of it was expensive and required Lena swallowing her pride and applying for grants through disability services. Some of it was cheap and ingenious, foam grips on utensils, magnetic strips for knives, adjustable height work surfaces. Ethan researched obsessively, watched YouTube videos about adaptive living, joined online forums for partners of people with disabilities. You know you've become that person, Lena said one evening, watching him assemble yet another gadget, the one who makes this their whole personality. Good, Ethan said without looking up. You deserve someone who makes supporting you their whole personality, or at least a significant portion of it. Mia got involved too, her second grade class doing a unit on accessibility that she took very seriously. She came home with elaborate plans for wheelchair ramps they didn't need and braille labels for a woman who could see perfectly fine, but her heart was in the right place. She also started explaining to her friends with the confident authority of a 7-year-old that her bonus mom had robot arms and could do everything they could do, just differently. Bonus mom? Lena asked when Mia reported this. Well, yeah. You're not my real mom because she died, but you're my bonus mom because you're here and you love Dad and you love me, right? The question was asked with such casual certainty that Lena's throat closed. Right. I love you both very much. Good. I love you too. Can you help me with my math homework? Dad's terrible at fractions. As summer approached, Ethan started acting strange. Secretive phone calls, mysterious errands, a general air of barely contained excitement. Lena assumed he was planning something for their 1-year anniversary, but when she tried to ask about it, he just smiled and changed the subject. The truth came out on a Saturday in June when he announced they were going to the beach, the same beach where they'd walked on their first date. It's going to rain, Lena protested, looking at the gray sky. So we'll get wet. Come on, humor me. They drove with Mia chattering in the back seat about a book she was reading, about her friend's upcoming birthday party, about whether mermaids were scientifically possible. The beach was deserted when they arrived, the air heavy with the promise of storms. Stay here for a minute, Ethan told Mia when they parked. I need to talk to Lena about something. Is it mushy stuff? Because I can stay in the car if it's mushy stuff. It might be a little mushy. Gross. I'll look at my rocks. Mia pulled out her collection from the back seat, completely absorbed. Ethan led Lena down to the water's edge, to the same stretch of sand where they'd walked a year ago. The waves were rougher today, agitated by the approaching weather, and the wind whipped Lena's hair around her face. Do you remember what you asked me that first day? Ethan said, having to raise his voice over the wind. At the cafe? Lena thought back. I asked a lot of things. You asked if I thought someone like you still deserved happiness. The memory hit her like a physical blow. She'd been so scared that day, so certain that letting him see the truth would end everything before it started. I remember. And I didn't really answer you then. I told you all the right things, but I don't think I actually answered the question. Ethan took both her hands, the real one and the prosthetic one, in his. So I'm answering now, yes. Unequivocally, yes. You deserve happiness. You deserve love. You deserve someone who sees every part of you and chooses you anyway. And I know I'm biased, but I'd really like to be that someone. Not just for now, but for as long as you'll have me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Lena's breath caught. I'm not asking for an answer right now, Ethan said quickly. I know marriage is huge and we've only been together a year and there's Mia to consider and 1,000 practical complications. But I wanted you to know that this is where I am. This is how I feel. You're not a burden or a compromise or someone I'm settling for. You're the person I want to build a life with. The person I want beside me through all the messy, complicated, beautiful moments ahead. He opened the box. The ring inside was simple, a silver band with 3 small stones, understated and elegant and utterly perfect. The stones represent the 3 of us, Ethan explained. You, me, and Mia. Because this isn't just about us. It's about the family we've already built, the one Mia drew in that picture months ago. Lena was crying now, tears mixing with the first drops of rain that had started to fall. Ethan, you don't have to answer now. Think about it. Take all the time you need. I just needed you to know that when I look at our future, you're in it. Always. Lena looked at the ring, then at Ethan's face, open and hopeful and terrified in equal measure. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, standing outside a cafe, convinced she was unlovable. She thought about all the moments since then, the painful ones and the joyful ones, and the utterly ordinary ones that had somehow added up to a life worth living. I don't need time, she heard herself say. Ethan's eyes widened. You don't? No, because I already know the answer. She took a shaky breath. A year ago, I asked if I deserved happiness because I genuinely didn't know. I thought losing my arms meant losing everything, my capability, my independence, my worth as a person. I thought anyone who chose to be with me was settling for damaged goods. The rain was falling harder now, soaking through their clothes, but neither of them moved. But you never looked at me like I was damaged, Lena continued. You looked at me like I was whole, like my worth wasn't tied to what I could or couldn't do with my hands. And slowly, you taught me to see myself that way too. Not by fixing me or completing me, but by loving me exactly as I am and showing me that was enough. Lena. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I want to build a life with you. Yes to all of it. Ethan's face transformed, joy breaking across it like sunrise. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her off her feet, spinning her around while the rain poured down and the ocean roared behind them. When he set her down, he was laughing and crying at the same time. Really? You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her then, deep and thorough and full of promise, and Lena felt something she'd thought was lost forever, absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. A car horn honked. They broke apart to see Mia hanging out the window, jumping up and down in her seat. Does this mean you're getting married? Does this mean Lena's really staying? Can I be a flower girl? Can we get a dog? Yes, maybe, and we'll discuss it, Ethan called back. They ran to the car, drenched and laughing, and Mia launched herself at Lena the moment they were inside. You're staying forever now, right? You promise? I promise, Lena said, hugging her tight. I'm not going anywhere. Good. Because I already told my friends you were my bonus mom, and it would be really embarrassing if you left now. The drive home was chaotic. Mia asking 1,000 questions about the wedding, about where they'd live, here, obviously, about whether she'd have to wear a dress, negotiable, about whether this meant they were a real family now. They already were, but yes. Ethan held Lena's hand the entire drive, occasionally glancing over at her like he couldn't quite believe this was real. That evening, after Mia had finally exhausted herself and fallen asleep, Ethan and Lena sat on the back porch watching the storm roll through. The rain had softened to a steady patter, and the air smelled clean and new. I have something for you, Lena said. Wait here. She returned a few minutes later with a painting she'd been working on in secret for weeks. It showed the beach at sunset, not realistic, but impressionistic, all loose brushstrokes and layered color. In the foreground, 3 figures stood at the water's edge. You couldn't see their faces, couldn't identify them specifically, but the composition made it clear, a family. I've been trying to paint what hope looks like, Lena explained. This is what I came up with. Ethan stared at the painting, his expression unreadable. Then he pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm really not. Perfect for me, then. Perfect for us. They sat in comfortable silence, the painting propped against the porch railing, the ring on Lena's finger catching the light from inside the house. Can I ask you something? Lena said eventually. Anything. Do you ever feel guilty about being happy?
About moving on from Rachel? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes. Less than I used to, but yeah. Sometimes I'll be laughing at something you said or watching you help Mia with homework, and I'll think about how Rachel should be here for this. How she'd love you, actually. How she'd probably give me shit for taking so long to put myself out there again. You think she'd approve? I think she'd tell me I was an idiot for almost letting you get away. Rachel was many things, but she wasn't someone who believed in wasting chances at happiness. He squeezed Lena's hand. She wanted me to live a full life after she was gone. To love again. To give Mia a complete family. I think she'd be thrilled that I found you. I wish I could have met her. Me too. You would have liked each other. Both stubborn as hell, both completely unwilling to accept bullshit, both fiercely protective of the people you love. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. Tell me something about her. Something happy. Ethan smiled. She had this thing where she'd sing made-up songs about whatever she was doing. Terrible songs with nonsense lyrics. Mia does it too sometimes. I think she learned it before Rachel died. And every time I hear it, I'm grateful. Because it means Rachel's still here in small ways. Still part of us. That's beautiful. That's life. The people we love don't really leave us. They just change shape. Become part of how we move through the world. They stayed on the porch until the storm passed and the stars came out, talking about the future. When to have the wedding, small, soon, just close friends and family. Where to go for a honeymoon, nowhere fancy, maybe just a weekend away while Ethan's parents watched Mia. What their life might look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20. The wedding happened 2 months later in Ethan's backyard, decorated with flowers Mia had helped pick and lights Lena had strung herself using her adaptive tools and sheer determination. It was small and perfect. Sarah flew in from Portland to be Lena's maid of honor. Ethan's best friend from college stood as his best man, and Mia served as flower girl in a dress she'd insisted on helping choose, purple, covered in stars with pockets for rocks. Lena wore a simple white dress with sleeves designed to accommodate her prosthetics without hiding them. She'd spent weeks working with a seamstress to get it right, something beautiful that acknowledged her reality rather than trying to conceal it. When she walked down the makeshift aisle on her father's arm, she saw Ethan's face transform with emotion, and she knew she'd made the right choice. The vows they exchanged were simple and honest. Ethan promised to love her through hard days and easy ones, to ask for help when he needed it, and offer it freely when she did, to build a life that honored both their losses and their hopes. Lena promised to trust his love instead of questioning it, to let herself be cared for without shame, to choose him every day, even when it was hard. When they kissed, Mia cheered so loudly several guests laughed, and Lena felt a completeness she'd never expected to find again. Not because Ethan completed her, she'd learned she was already whole on her own, but because he expanded her world in ways she hadn't known were possible. The reception was casual, barbecue and beer, and a playlist Mia had helped create that veered wildly between classic rock and current pop hits. Lena's mother cried through most of it, kept hugging Lena and telling her how proud she was, how happy she was that her daughter had found love again. Ethan's parents welcomed Lena into their family with the kind of warmth that suggested they'd been waiting for this. As the sun set and the party continued, Lena found herself standing at the edge of the yard, watching her new family. Mia was teaching other kids an elaborate game that seemed to involve a lot of running and screaming. Ethan was deep in conversation with Lena's father about something that had them both laughing. Sarah was chatting with Ethan's mother, probably sharing embarrassing stories about Lena's college years. Happy? A hand touched her shoulder. She turned to find Ethan beside her, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. Deliriously, she took the glass he offered. This is really happening. We're really married. We really are. Having regrets yet? Ask me again after I've lived with your snoring for 50 years. Fair. Ask me again after I've spent 50 years opening jars for you. Deal. She clinked her glass against his. To 50 years of adaptive equipment and terrible dad jokes. To 50 years of your terrible paintings and my questionable cooking. To choosing each other even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Ethan kissed her forehead. Come on, Mia wants to make a toast before she crashes from her sugar high.
They gathered everyone together, and Mia stood on a chair with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted she belonged center stage. "I'm supposed to say something nice," she announced, "about Dad and Lena getting married. So here it is. I'm really happy they found each other because Dad was lonely before, and now he's not. And Lena is nice and helps me with my homework and doesn't mind my rock collection even though it's taking over the house. And they love each other a lot, which is gross sometimes, but also good, so I'm happy. The end." Everyone applauded, and Mia took an elaborate bow before declaring she needed more cake immediately. Later that night, after the guests had left and Mia had finally fallen asleep in her room, still wearing her flower girl dress because she refused to take it off, Ethan and Lena sat on their porch in the quiet darkness. "Do you remember what you told me?" Lena asked. "That first day at the beach?" "I told you a lot of things. You said happiness isn't something we earn or deserve, it's something we choose." "I remember. I think you were right, but I also think it's more than that." Lena looked at her ring, simple and perfect in the moonlight. "Happiness isn't just about choosing, it's about letting yourself be chosen, about believing you're worth someone else's choice. That was the hard part for me, not choosing you, but believing you'd really chosen me. And now? Now I believe it, finally." She turned to look at him. "You chose me when I couldn't hold a fork without help. You chose me through phantom pains and bad days and all the moments when I was certain I was too much trouble. You chose me so consistently that I finally learned to choose myself too. That's the real gift you gave me, not completing me, but helping me see I was already complete." Ethan pulled her close, and they sat wrapped in each other as the night deepened around them. Somewhere in the house, Mia snored softly. In the garage, Lena's paintings waited to dry, imperfect and beautiful in their looseness. On the counter, tomorrow's coffee cup sat ready for morning. It was ordinary. It was perfect. It was home. The question Lena had asked a year ago, whether she deserved happiness, felt distant now, almost absurd. Of course she deserved happiness. Everyone did. But deserving it and believing it were different things. Deserving it and accepting it were different things. Deserving it and building it day by day through small choices and hard conversations and moments of grace, that was something else entirely. She wasn't the same woman who'd stood outside that cafe, terrified and convinced she was unlovable. She'd lost her arms, but she'd gained something she couldn't have imagined. A family who loved her not despite her limitations, but including them. A partner who saw her fears and chose her anyway. A daughter who thought robot arms were cool and didn't understand why anyone would think otherwise. She'd gained herself back, piece by piece, through the patient work of being seen and choosing to be seen and learning that vulnerability wasn't weakness, but the foundation of every real connection. "What are you thinking about?" Ethan asked, his voice soft in the darkness. "That I don't ask that question anymore. The one about deserving happiness. What do you ask instead? How did I get so lucky? How did I find people who love me this much? And what do I do with all this joy? And what's the answer?" Lena smiled. "I live it, every single day. I show up and try and fail and try again. I let you help me and I help you back. I paint terrible paintings and do my job and raise Mia alongside you. I choose this life, this family, this love, over and over. That's what I do with it. That sounds perfect to me." They sat in the quiet for a while longer, neither needing to fill the silence with words. The night was warm, the stars were bright, and somewhere in the house a child slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that she was loved. Lena thought about the future, all the ordinary days ahead, all the challenges they'd face, all the moments of joy and frustration and connection. She thought about growing old with this man, about watching Mia grow up, about all the ways their life would change and shift and evolve. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of loss, not of inadequacy, not of the vulnerability that came with loving someone completely. Because she'd learned something crucial in the past year. Wholeness wasn't about being perfect or undamaged. It wasn't about having all the pieces in place. Wholeness was about being fully yourself, scars and limitations and fears and all, and finding people who loved you not in spite of those things, but because of them. Because they made you real. Because they made you human. Because they made you who you were. Lena Moore had lost her arms 3 years ago. But sitting on this porch with her husband beside her and her daughter sleeping safely inside, she realized she'd found something far more precious. She'd found her way home. Not to a place, but to a feeling. Not to perfection, but to acceptance. Not to being fixed, but to being loved exactly as she was. And that, she thought, as Ethan's hand found hers in the darkness, was more than enough. It was everything. The answer to her question wasn't complicated after all. Did she deserve happiness? Yes. But more importantly, she'd learned to accept it, to build it, to choose it every single day. And she had chosen well.